Hey guys, this tutorial will take you through how to complete the budgeting project. To find the budgeting project in OpenClass, you're going to go down to the budgeting tab and click on planning and evaluating a budget. Once you get to this screen, you're going to go down to the 6th task on the list and you'll see a link for the budgeting project and also for the project rubric. So let's start with the budgeting project. You can see right here I also gave you a tip to make a copy of this PowerPoint presentation because this is what you're actually going to fill out. This will be your project as well as the instructions. So let's take a look. The budgeting project is a simulation. So here's the scenario. You've just graduated from college and landed your dream job, and it's time to start planning for your future, meaning where are you going to live, where are you going to or what car are you going to drive, what are you going to eat, what are you going to wear, and most importantly, how are you going to pay for it all? So you're going to create a budget to figure out what your income and expenses are. On the next slide, there's an assignment preview, and you can see I broke it down into 8 steps, and they go in order. So if you look, the first thing you're going to do is calculate your gross and net income. Then you're going to research the common expenses you will have. You're going to fill out a budget worksheet. You're going to potentially revise your budget if you go over. You're going to explain your opportunity costs and sacrifices you had to make. You're going to forecast into the future, meaning if you were over budget, how would your debt look like 3 years out? Or if you're under budget, how much money could you save into the future? The last thing you're going to do is reflect and then link your budget worksheet to this presentation. So let's take a look at step 1. Calculating your income. Well, you need to think back to the career unit in order to do this. In the career unit, you were asked to come up with a career to research that you were interested in. If you remember in this Myself and My Career document, you took a look at a career, and one of the things I asked you to find was the annual salary. Well, if you used BLS, you probably found an annual salary or an average salary, and not necessarily the entry-level salary. So when you're thinking about your annual gross salary, you need to probably Google this one again. So a couple things. First of all, I'm going to make a copy of this presentation. I actually already did make a copy, so I could fill it out and show along with you. If I'm at the income tab, like I said, let's say my career is pediatrician. So I want to be a doctor. Well, I'm going to Google what a first-year doctor would make. So if I went to Google and I looked at that, it says, how much do resident doctors get paid? Well, most of them get paid anywhere between $40,000 and $50,000 a year. And that's from the AMA, so that's pretty accurate. I will take the $50,000, I'll go on the high end and take that $50,000 number, that's fine. But I'm going to type that into annual gross income. And what I did here is I linked that website because that's my source. I have to make sure that I am very specific as to where I got my information from. So all I did was highlight this link and then highlight this text, and I added that website. And that's something that you should probably do too, or put a list of sources at the end of your presentation. In the next step, I'm going to calculate my net salary, which means how much do I actually get to take home after taxes. And you're going to use this website to help you out. So if I click, I can see that the tax brackets for somebody who makes it $50,000 means that I pay 25% of my income. So I'm going to get my calculator out. And if 25% goes to the government, that means 75% comes home with me. So 75% of 50,000, 37,500. So that's going to go under annual net salary. And then I need to divide that by 12 to figure out what my monthly salary is. So I'll do that really quickly too. So So this is the number I'm working with because we know that when we create a budget, it's on a monthly basis. So that's how much I have to spend, $3,125. Now that we've figured out our income, step 2 is to start tracking our expenses. This is going to take a little bit of time. It's going to take some research online, some conversations maybe with your parents, and potentially some phone calls to some internet providers or cable companies if you want to go above and beyond. That's up to you. So I laid out some expenses for you, just the common ones like housing and transportation, utilities and food, and then it's up to you to fill in the rest to figure out where your money's going to go. So we'll start with housing, and I'm not going to take you through this step by step like I did with the income. I'm going to give you a brief overview, and then it's up to you guys to do the rest. So for housing, I gave you a link to a website called PadMapper. PadMapper's nice because you can search for an apartment anywhere you want. You just type in the city, how much you want to pay in rent, number of bedrooms and bathrooms, and you'll get locations all over the place. So what each one of these pins represents is an apartment. So let's go to Chicago. Let's see. See all rentals in Chicago? I can do it that way too. And you can do the suburbs. You can do Franklin Park, Rosemont, wherever. But I click on a pin, and it tells me how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, what the rent would be, and also it shows you some pictures as well. So that's how you're going to figure out housing. And then you're going to fill in all your information right here. After housing, you're looking at utilities. I put a couple of utilities in there for you. Gas and electric are kind of hard to calculate unless you actually own or rent a place. So we're going to assume that you're paying at least $150 in gas and $45 in electric. But that's for a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom unit. If you are going to live in a place that's bigger, then you're going to add $25 for every room to both utility bills. Water is typically included in the rent, so you don't have to worry about that. But you do need to calculate your cell phone bill, cable, and internet. So again, this could be a conversation with your parents, or if you want extra credit, make a phone call to Comcast or any of those providers, AT&T, and see what those costs would be in the area that you're interested in, and tell me about it. Create a new slide and explain the process you went through, and you can definitely earn extra credit for that. For your cell phone, please assume that you are the adult. If you have a family plan and you pay, right now, you pay $25 a month, but your parents pay $100, then assume that you would be the primary carrier there, and that your bill would be $100 a month. We want this to be as true to real life as possible. For transportation, we're going to assume that all of you are going to need a car. If you already have a car, you're still going to look one up. So you're going to use CarMax to do that, and you can look for used or new cars there. But once you go to CarMax and find a vehicle that you like, all you do is type in the car that you want in this search box, and it'll give you a whole bunch of results. And you're going to click on See Details and then Estimate Monthly Payments. When you get to this page, you're going to leave vehicle price and tax, title, tax, and fees alone. But for your down payment amount, you're going to put 0. And for the finance rate, you're going to put 5%. And then your contract length can be anywhere between 24 and 60 months. Once you hit Calculate, it's going to give you a car payment, a monthly car payment. So you put the type of car up here. Your car payment, I would talk to your parents about what they pay for insurance. Registration, that's something you can Google. How much does it cost to register a car in the state of Illinois? That means get a license plate. Maintenance is like oil changes and tune-ups and stuff like that. And then gas is going to be a few calculations actually. You're going to have to determine how many gallons your car has, how big your tank is, and what the gas mileage is, and then also what's the average price of gas in the area where you're going to live. If you're living in Chicago, it's going to be a little bit more expensive than it is in the suburbs. And then you also have to think about, okay, how many times am I going to fill up my gas tank? I would say on average, and I'm somebody who lives about 15 minutes and 15 miles from my job, just commuting back and forth from work and home, I fill up my gas tank once a week. So I would probably, whatever number you get for filling up your gas tank, I would multiply by 4 or 5 to figure out your monthly payment. Food is going to be a little bit more difficult because there's a lot, but you can Google that as well. How much does it cost to feed one person in a month? Also think about where you go out to eat. Do you eat fast food every day? Do you go to Starbucks? Do you go out to eat with your friends on the weekends? And also put yourselves in the shoes of yourself 5 years from now. Your spending habits could be different. So think about not only your grocery bill, but also going out to eat. And explain where your numbers came from. Link to a website, write a paragraph, whatever you need to do. Personal care, I put clothes and haircuts in here because these are the common ones, but you can also, if you're somebody who gets highlights or you get your nails done, you're going to have to think about that stuff as well. Entertainment, some people go out all the time and spend money on concerts and movies, sporting events, all sorts of stuff. I think entertainment is anything that you're doing to have fun, so that could be a lot. So again, I would go on the internet and see. A lot of people blog about spending habits, and you'll get a pretty good idea of where money goes. And the more you can tell me, the more accurate your budget's going to be, and the better idea I'll have of your research. Once you have gone through all of the expenses, now it's time to fill out your budget worksheet. So here's the link to the budget worksheet, and you're just going to click on it. It looks like this, and make a copy of it. Now there's one thing that I forgot to mention, because it's not, I guess it is technically an expense, but you should know by now that we always put money into our savings first. We always put 10% into our savings. We pay ourselves first. So we know that our monthly income was $3,125. So under savings, we're going to put $312.50 from the get-go. That's going to be the first thing that we do. So depending on your monthly net income, you're going to put 10% of that into savings first. And then you're going to go through and you're going to fill all of these cells in. At the top, you'll see a place for income. And at the bottom, you'll see a place to do the calculations. So once you figure out your predicted expenses, and you type in your monthly net income, you're going to subtract to figure out what the difference is. Now, if this number is negative, you need to revise your budget. If it's not negative, then you can decide, okay, did I overspend somewhere? Do I need to spend that much? Or maybe now that I see that I've got some money left over, I'm going to put more into savings. Or maybe I can get a different car. So you decide. But you have your original budget here. And if you need to revise your budget, I don't want you to change these numbers. I would rather you create a new worksheet. So you can come down here and click and create a new worksheet and just copy and paste this. Or you can make a brand new document. You can make a copy of this document with all of your original numbers intact, and then go through and decide, okay, I'm going to get a different car, and then change that car payment and see how this number changes. But I want you to have a record of both, your original and your revised budget. If you don't need to revise your budget, then you're only going to have one worksheet, and that's totally fine. After you've determined what goes on to your worksheet and whether you are over budget or under budget, you're going to answer a couple questions. Were you over or under? And if so, by how much? And if you need to revise your budget, what steps should you take? And like I said, make those revisions on your budget worksheet. Step 5 is to consider your opportunity costs, which means what did you give up? So think about the decisions you made throughout this process. Did you change where you were going to live because of the cost? Did you change where you were, what you were going to drive or what you were going to eat? The clothes that you would buy? Those are all of your opportunity costs. Step 6 is forecasting, so projecting out into the future. If you had money left over, I want you to take that figure and multiply it so that you can figure out how much money would you be able to save in 3 years? So if you have $150 left over at the end of a month, you need to multiply that by 12 to figure out how much you would have after a year, and then by 3 to figure out what you would have after 3 years. Same thing depending on your debt. For performance, this is really looking at your earning potential for the future. So in most industries, your salary depends on your performance. It's not a true or accurate indication, but for this simulation, we're going to use GPA to determine what performance category you would fall under. So if your GPA is a 3.5 or higher, you have an exceptional rating, which means that you would get a 10% raise for this simulation. If your GPA is between a 2.0 and a 3.5, you have an average rating, and you would get a 5% raise. And if your GPA is less than a 2.0, you have a poor rating, and you wouldn't get a raise. The truth is, in the real world, you probably wouldn't have a job either, but for this purpose, I would like you to calculate what your raise would be. So 10% of your annual salary, or 5% of your annual salary, and then figure out what that figure would be and put it down here. Step 7 is to reflect. So I just asked you to tell me a little bit about what you learned throughout this simulation. What's the most important thing you learned? Were there any light bulb aha moments? And just give me a short explanation of that. And then on the last page, you're going to link your budget worksheet. So all you do is take your link, copy it, select your text, and the link button, and paste. If this simulation causes you to create 2 budget worksheets, then label one original, and then you can link your second one and call it your revised. Whatever you have to do. So that's it for the budget project. Hopefully that helps give you a good idea of the steps you need to take. If you have any questions, please make sure or don't hesitate to contact your instructor.